Hey everyone, welcome to r/Tales from Tech Support, where we get to have a little chuckle at the technologically disadvantaged, like me. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got a story for you. My 22-year-old left-handed sister was bothering me a month or so back for a good mouse to use with her notebook during her online classes. Her reference for good mouse was my ancient Corsair Alcor, not exactly a left-handed mouse. I expressed my concerns, and she asked how much was the Logitech G300S I got from my also left-handed mother. Great sale at the time, now double that much. And what little color she has drains from her face, so that's not going to happen. I suggest an off-brand gaming mouse that should have everything she's looking for at an affordable price. The issue then becomes the cord. How dare they have a 1.8 meter cord or even a 2.4 meter cord? It should be under 60 centimeters since it's going to plug directly into the laptop's USB port right next to it on the table. My father walks in and makes a remark about how people with long cables must be compensating for something. Fine, what kind of mouse do you want then? Wireless. At that price range, they all suck horribly though. Wireless, you can tie up the extra cable. Wireless. So a wireless mouse is ordered, from my account, because of course nobody else in the house has an account. And it would be oh so hard to make one with the large online retailer. And Peter already has one. Just order it on yours. And since our information is not online, order with your card. We'll pay you back later. The day when it finally arrives, I watch in silence to see how long it takes my supposedly bright sister to connect it. She looks at the instructions, or rather the drawings that pass for instructions on an HP wireless mouse. She puts the included AA battery in the compartment in the mouse. It lights up, but it's not moving the cursor on the screen. She seems confused as to why. Then she sees the drawing, makes a sound, and puts the wireless USB receptor inside the mouse, in the snug compartment where it fits in for travel. It takes her another 5 minutes and lots of looking at the instructions to realize that it needs to be plugged in the USB port of the laptop before it will work with that laptop. All the while I'm conflicted between seeing how long it actually takes and immediately mocking her as a proper older brother. And the kicker? She uses it right-handed, so the paper notebook can be on the left side of the electronic notebook. All that complication and all she needed was a right-hand wireless mouse anyway. Amazing. Put e-juice in device, now it's not working. How is that my fault? Context. I used to work for a delivery company where drivers are given shared handheld devices to help them to navigate and scan deliveries. My role is to assist with any issues they may have. A lot of the issues are how to navigate the GUI, graphic user interface. I receive a call from a user saying his device isn't working and is non-functional. I run through the usual checklist. Does it have power? Is it charging? Power cycle the device, etc. Nothing. Device is bricked and unresponsive. I asked him to bring it up to us as he was still on site. User arrives. They were a 30 to 40-year-old and were visibly irate and concerned that he was going to be running late all day. I asked for the device and look at the hardware. Taking the back off, I noticed the water tab is colored, and the entire device has a stodgy, sticky, sweet-smelling gunk inside. I ask if he's put any liquid into this device. He replies with, no. However, if you people would do your jobs, then I wouldn't have to be doing this basic maintenance. Puzzled, I asked what maintenance he had performed. Refilling the Wi-Fi, of course. The last driver must have used it all, and you haven't refilled it. At this moment, I had to stifle a laugh, quickly moving behind my monitor until my composure returned. The Wi-Fi can be poor in some parts of the building. I cautiously asked, what did you refill it with? Probably not the same brand you use, because not long after, the thing turned off. I asked to see what he filled it with. He produces a bottle that I was quite familiar with. It was a 30 milliliter dripper bottle of vape juice. It was in a non-branded bottle, probably left on site by a previous driver. Now it all makes sense. He squeezed the juice into the device's headphone jack and soaked all the internal components. I made him aware of the company charge statement, liable for full cost, regarding damage to a device. To which the user was arguing with me adamantly that he has not done anything wrong. I brought his manager in to help explain. They asked about his home devices, to which he says his wife and kids look after the Wi-Fi levels. Oh my gosh. I am totally speechless. I have no idea what to add to this one. Oh well, next story. It helps to put the headphones in. I spent 2 days on this user. 2 days. Updating all speaker drivers, sending them to buy new headphones, sending them again with a picture and an item number when they got the wrong ones. Their Teams calling wouldn't work for anything. To be fair, our laptops have terrible mice, so most of us use headphones. The old workaround was their Bluetooth headphones, but when I unpaired them and asked the user to repair, they didn't know how. I sent instructions. They still couldn't figure it out. I offered to take them wired headphones that we give out like candy at the office. Nope, they'll get their own. They managed to get a giant headset, like a gaming headset. They can't figure out how to use it. I look up their Best Buy and check their in-store pickup. I sent them the link to some super basic earbuds with a mic and how to reserve that exact model. Today they have them and we try again. Still not working. I've got most of the team checking over me now. I feel like I'm missing something. It can't be this difficult. Drivers, privacy, mic settings, speaker settings, round and around. Finally, my coworker jokes, "Do they have the headphones in?" I assumed so. They should have known they'd have to wear them for the mic to pick them up, right? So I tell them, humor me, put in both earbuds. By God, it worked! V approves, you're a genius. They'd plugged them in and never put them on, so the mic was trying to pick them up 3 feet away. Tech support is only so good, people. Do your part. I don't understand. How do you not know that you gotta have them in your head for them to work? They're not designed to pick up across a room. Holy cow, even the mic I'm using right here has to be, within a certain distance to work well. Otherwise, you get the room echo. Jeez. The HR lady doesn't like me much. So this happened at the company that I currently work for, but it was many years ago. I didn't plan the outcome, just a coincidence caused by insisting on malicious compliance, also tech support. I work in IT, and when I started, my job was rather entry-level, but it was paid as a salary position. After some years, the company decided to make it an hourly position, which I didn't like for a variety of reasons. The company's main hourly worker pool was for manufacturing and assembly line, so the company structured its hourly policies around that position. Rigid start and end times, scheduled breaks, and sick time billed to your earned PTO. A lot of these policies were not really compatible with my availability and the type of work that I was doing. Not to mention, some of the benefits changed considerably. Hourly employees were supposed to use a time clock, but those were only in buildings that had manufacturing. My manager at the time totally understood why I was disgruntled, and she came up with a few workarounds. One of which was to enter a generic 40-hour time card for me in the system every week. Which was cool because it meant that I didn't have to use the punch clock. If there was any overtime, she would go in and fix it later. There was nothing that I could do about the change to hourly, but being me, I was pretty vocal about it, and my attitude eventually caught me the attention of the HR lady. She also got wind of the whole time card deal, so that came to an end. I gave in and started using the punch clock. No more edits. At some point, my manager needed me to start the day in a different building which had no punch clock. I don't think she was aware that there was no punch clock, so she had to make an edit to my time card for the day. Well, the HR lady saw the edit and assumed that I was still being obstinate. Out of the blue, my manager scheduled a formal type meeting with me in one of the local conference rooms. She presents a document for me to read and sign, which is a formal reprimand for not following the policy regarding the time clocks. I was instantly furious because I was following the policy. But she sent me to a site without a punch clock. She had no choice as the HR lady was the one who wrote the reprimand, and told my manager to have me sign it. I read through the write-up and realized it was very poorly written, like a grade schooler had prepared it. Lots of copy and pasted text, points that did not apply to the issues at hand, and no clearly defined problem with a desired resolution and probationary period. So I refused to sign. I pointed out the many mistakes, the points that did not apply, and the lack of resolution, plan, or time period. My manager agreed with me that the reprimand was BS, but the HR lady wanted to go down this path. Well, then we're going to do it right, and I was going to make her work for it. I demanded a rewritten form with a clearly stated problem, a desired resolution, and a time frame for when the matter would be considered resolved. My manager said, "The HR lady is not going to like that. She's going to want to talk to you directly." I said, "Good, I'll gladly tell her to her face." We scheduled a meeting. I explained to the HR lady that the reprimand process was an opportunity to not only point out mistakes, but also to correct them. The lack of an improvement plan in this write-up meant it could not meet those requirements. Begrudgingly, the HR lady accepted my complaints and agreed to redo the write-up. To my surprise, I never heard from her again about this issue. I had kind of forgot about the whole thing until they did some restructuring in IT, which made me realize I didn't want that hanging over my head unresolved. I decided to formally request a copy of my file from HR, and to my surprise, the reprimand wasn't in it. I emailed the HR lady asking about this, and she explained that she rescinded it, so it's gone. I was a little confused that she hadn't mentioned this in the months that had passed, but was glad it was over. Sometime later, I was having lunch with my director, and he brought up the reprimand. He was asking, "Whatever happened with that?" And I told him HR rescinded it. Apparently, HR cannot close a reprimand without the employee's leadership signing off on it, which was about 4 different people. Not a single one would agree to it. It turns out that my malicious compliance with the reprimand process forced her to write a detailed, intelligible reprimand including an improvement plan. All the extra details she had to add made it clear to everyone that it was BS and she couldn't add it to my file. Yeah, so at first she really didn't want to do the work involved, she was just telling a power trip, and then when she finally did do the work and add a bunch of detail, you could see just how petty it was. Amazing. You'd like me to resign? How about I fire myself from this job instead? Part 1. New job. This happened about a year ago now, but I still think back to it from time to time and appreciate how well it unfolded. I work in software and took a job at a small to medium-sized software company in 2018. The company was family-owned, and I went to high school with the CEO's daughter. The place itself was rampant with nepotism, and the company culture wasn't great. Sexist comments and humorous, racist remarks were common, but I needed a job and this was one of the few options I had. My title was project coordinator, but I was quickly relegated to buying lunches for the team and such. At one point, when the lottery reached $500 million, the CTO asked me to dress like Randy Savage and get a pool together. I spent a whole day buying lottery tickets. I hated it, but kept thinking if I paid my dues, I'd get a shot at some real work and growth. Eventually, I got a chance to handle recruiting and doing intro calls for new hires. It was brutal, but yet again, I kept pushing through. Part 2. I hate it here. It was a 6-month contract to hire situation, and they made me an offer which I was able to negotiate from $40K to $55K, which felt like validation finally. Sadly, nothing changed after this. I kept buying lunches and setting up calls that I wouldn't be included in. Around this time, one-to-ones essentially ended for me. What was a monthly cadence with my boss, the CTO, turned to once every 3 months, and finally he had me reporting to the CTO's daughter, who would then conduct my one-to-ones. I was open about my frustrations, and I was promised that in January 2020 they would move me out of hiring. January came and went. Part 3. Malicious compliance. February, and I finally had a meeting with the CTO. I got to his office only to be told that there was no other role for me, and now that we had hired more people, we didn't have a need for my services anymore on the tech team. I pushed harder, and essentially the CEO's daughter didn't have faith in me, and that was that. He politely suggested I resign, and they'd give me a letter of recommendation. We went back and forth, and he finally mentioned that there was another opening on another team, but he thought that would be a bad role for me. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. He showed me all his hands at that point, and I knew I could make this work for me. The next day I updated my DICE profile, and within 24 hours had 2 interviews set up. I told him I needed a few days to think things over and that I was taking PTO. I went home and waited, watched Nacho Libre, and prepped for interviews. That day he texted me asking me general work questions. Day 2, he finally broke down and asked over text if I wanted to be let go or resign. He actually wrote that in text form. I told him I was still thinking about the other role and hadn't made a decision. I then had dinner with the founder of the company. The other role was on his team. He was the CEO's husband, and he and I always got along. I laid out everything I went through. That night, I emptied most of my office, and the next day the CTO called livid, telling me I was handling this the wrong way, and this was making it difficult for them. 2 days later, after using some of my personal time off, I walked into the VP of HR's office and told her to fire me. She looked at me confused and said that a manager normally needs to tell her that. I showed her printed out screenshots of our texts and a log of my one-to-ones, citing that if they were firing me for a cause, then you'd think this would look more consistent. The fallout. I was fired, and at this point I had a job lined up already. Shutdown hit and that offer was delayed, but because I was fired, I could claim unemployment. This hit them hard, and they even tried to claim they gave me severance, but I had all my pay stubs and proved otherwise. The CEO's daughter straight up stopped talking to me, and they ended up giving up their office and moving into a co-working space. I got a job as a legit PM at a Fortune 50 software company. I bought a Lincoln. My life is 100 times better. My parents voted for the first time this year, and I went with them. They lived close to that co-working space, and with as much salt as possible, I linked up with a few folks I actually liked at the company, and they told me to come over. I spent a half day working in the same space as them with the biggest grin on my face. And that's how I left my previous company. As a kid, they tell you don't get fired. As an adult, sometimes it's the smartest option. Too long didn't read. I was a decent employee, but they wanted me to resign. I fired myself instead. Yep, sometimes people don't realize what they've got until it's gone. They had somebody there that was eager and willing to learn and push through the process to get to where they wanted to be and where they would benefit the company the most, and they squandered it and chased him off. Good on OP for finally sticking to his guns. We live and die by the knowledge base. Background: I work for a moderately sized company that provides remote technical support. I'm on the team that provides support for a popular drive-in. I'm on a smaller subset that provides assistance with high-priority tickets. There has been an upheaval recently as several of us do not use the knowledge base, KB, for every ticket, as what we do is frequently repetitive. Players: supervisor, sup, lead, me. One day I was closing a few cases that had been automatically generated by a third party to alert us to an issue. These were duplicates of other cases, but if you close the automatic case, then more are generated, so we normally close the manually open ticket to avoid this. About a week ago, company decided that a KB must be used for every ticket. I asked in our group chat about the auto-generated tickets. Lead: per KB 566657, you must close whatever ticket was opened first. Me, explaining reasoning. Super, we live by the KB. This short exchange took place in a group chat, so our entire team saw it. The compliance, as you probably guessed, is that I have been resolving the first ticket, generating lots and lots of duplicates since. Since we charge our client per ticket, they are not happy. Company has since updated the KB. It's amazing how many bosses out there have no idea what happens below their level in a company. They have no idea how operations work or anything. It's just staggering. Not even the CEO can do it. Okay, let's find out. I bought a laptop from a large Fortune 500 company. We will call this company Bell Computers. After about 2 years, the hinges on the laptop broke and it was almost, but not quite, out of warranty. I called the service center and they refused to replace it. I called, got the runaround, and each time they refused to fix it or even send me the part. Eventually, I was speaking with a low-level customer service manager and I told them I would keep trying to escalate this until someone honored the warranty. Then he replied, "You can escalate this all the way to the CEO and he wouldn't even do it." Well, it was at that moment that it clicked. See, I used to work for Bell Computer Company. I didn't know the CEO, Mr. Bell, but while I was employed there, he would occasionally send mass emails out to the staff. The email was also a combination of initials and names, so it was easy to remember. Alright then, let's play. I hung up the phone and drafted an email to Mr. Bell, CEO of Bell Computers, just like the helpful customer service rep said I should do. I wrote in the email about being a former employee, how the runaround with customer service was awful, how I just wanted the part to fix my laptop. The next day I got a phone call from Mr. Bell's executive assistant. I spoke with her for about 15 minutes about everything that had happened. She took my info and my computer service number and said she would forward it to the VP of customer service. I got an email the following day saying the part had shipped. That reminds me of a story. Oh my gosh, when was this? I want to say somewhere between 2008 and 2010. I bought my wife a Dell laptop. We got it in the mail, ordered it directly from Dell. It wasn't top of the line, but it wasn't the slowest piece of junk either. It's just, something basic that I figured would last a few years. We get the laptop, it powers on but the fan craps out, it overheats, and everything's glitchy because it's overheating. So I call customer service, and I call customer service, and I call customer service, and they're not honoring any warranty. And they want me to pay for repairs and shipping and everything else. And I'm like, no, I've only had it a week. So finally, I did a little bit of researching. This may have been earlier than that, but anyway, I did a little bit of researching, and I found an email from Michael Dell's office. This was back, so my years might be messed up, but this was back when Michael Dell was still kind of in charge of everything down there in Texas. And I sent his office an email, and I know, I'm not stupid. I know Michael Dell's not going to read my email, but his executive assistant called me up the next day and asked me the issues, and I told her, and I'd gone round and round for weeks with this by this point. And, she said, you know what? She didn't call anybody. She didn't talk to anybody. She didn't forward me on to another supervisor, nothing. She said, there'll be another laptop in the mail tomorrow. When you get that, there's a return authorization slip in the box. Put your current laptop in that box and send it back. And everything was fine. I haven't been that lucky since, but do my job only? Sure. In 2003-2004, I worked for a call center in Idaho, and I was hired from off the call floor into the facilities department alongside the IT guy. Think primary role facilities with a junior role in IT. I didn't care for the facility role, so in my spare time I dove into the IT side as much as possible, and did work on behalf of the IT guy to keep the issues at a minimum for the IT guy. Eventually, the IT guy started complaining that I was doing his job, although that was the deal when I was hired, and I was keeping up with my facilities work and the IT work. One day I was up on the call floor, imaging a section of PCs because the IT guy bailed on me after he threw a fit over something. I can't remember what. This day there happened to be an executive on site, and she asked the site manager why the facilities guys was doing IT work. I was told to only work on facilities issues. Cool. Cue malicious compliance. All of my work from that day forward came in the form of a ticket. No ticket, no work. 75% of the time I was chilling in my office watching a movie while the IT guy was busting his butt. Turns out they needed my help but wouldn't let me. Eventually the IT guy was let go for underperformance, and I moved into the role full time. Had the guy not complained about me helping, he may have kept his job. Too long didn't read. IT guy complains about facility guy, me, doing his job, even though that was the deal when I was hired. Eventually he got fired. If he hadn't complained, he'd have kept his job. I get bored at jobs really easily, so I'm always one to, if I finish my work, I go above and beyond and try to learn new things and do other tasks just to keep busy and make the day go by faster. And if you actually enjoy doing that kind of work, it's a bonus. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. If you've enjoyed this content, do me a favor. Would you consider giving a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard telling you stories? See ya!